One of the biggest challenges that we all face on our healing and recovery journey and in life is what to do when we encounter resistance. As much as we would love for recovery to just be this linear process and for everything to go smoothly, there's always going to be some unexpected hurdles, perhaps dips, mini mountains to climb en route to that glorious summit, or little setbacks here and there. It's what we do when met with these challenges that determines success in healing and beyond. The key here is to think greater than you feel. I remember I once had this boss when I was working in Midtown Manhattan, and I noticed a certain trend going on. Every time he came down with a cold or something that made him feel a little bit run down and tired, he would come into the office dressed way better than he would normally. And he was normally a really good dresser. But on those days when he felt his worst is when he would dress his best, even put on a tuxedo sometimes. That seriously happened. We came back taking the red-eye flight from a conference we did on the West Coast, and he went home for 10 minutes, changed, and came back looking like James Bond. And I once asked him, I said, okay, what's going on here? Are you consciously doing this, or is this just happenstance? And he said, no, I make an effort to dress my best when I'm feeling at my worst. When I have low energy, I put on my best and really present myself in the best way. And that gives him the momentum, the motivation, and the just rolling along to get into and approach the day and show up in his best possible way. So the key is really think greater than you feel. I want to talk to you a little bit about positive expectancy and how powerful this is and how you can use it. And here I'll share a story with you from that trip I took to survival school. There was a point at which everyone had to learn how to make fire, and it was like day 3 or 4 of this 8-day survival school course, and we were separated out so every person was by themselves. And at this time, I still hadn't been able to make fire using the little friction method. And we had a cup of grains with us, lentils, and the only way that we could actually eat them was, of course, if we boiled them in water, cooked them, and had a hot meal. And that could only happen if we could make fire. But by this day, I still wasn't able to do it. And I found myself each time I tried becoming more and more flustered, more upset, more tense, and less able to do it. The following morning, despite the hunger, despite the weary feeling, despite the craving for food and just wanting to have a hot meal, rather than getting flustered and going about it how I had done the previous days, I took a moment. I calmed myself down. I took some of those deep breaths. I sort of set the stage for the success that I wanted, meaning I put out my little cup, I put out a handkerchief as if like a picnic table, and I just put it in my mind that today, no matter what, I'm going to have a hot meal. And then I started to do the fire making process. I started rubbing these sticks together, creating some momentum, but doing it in this calm state where I wasn't so concerned with the outcome at that point because in a way, I was already calm. I was already satisfied. I was already dropped into the moment, into where I wanted to be. So it allowed my nervous system to relax, to stay in contact with the activity. And lo and behold, with just a few minutes, friction, spark, and fire emerged. And there that day, I had myself a hot breakfast. Let's go with a short story now about how we can approach obstacles and actually turn them into opportunities for continued growth and neuroplasticity. I heard about this great tennis player once who injured his ankle. At first, he didn't think much of it. He just kept playing. But eventually, it did get so bad that the more he tried to force his way through it, the more inflamed and painful it became. Tennis was his bliss, his biggest joy, and his livelihood. When it turned out that he needed to have surgery on his ankle that would take him off for about 6 to 12 months, at first he became discouraged, and then after the surgery in a few weeks, he became depressed. Then one day, his dog came to him with a tennis ball in his mouth, wanting to play. And he took the ball from the dog's mouth and threw it a few times. One of the times, it bounced off a wall, and he caught it again, and it gave him this good feeling that he remembered having. So he did it a few more times. That afternoon, he decided to go back to the tennis court and to stop waiting until he got fully better. He knew that he couldn't use his same old approach of getting up and pushing through the pain. That's what made the injury worse in the first place. So instead, he brought a chair with him. This would limit him to staying in one spot so he wouldn't be tempted to hobble around. And he had a friend serve him the ball. And the more they rallied the ball back and forth, the more into it he got, feeling all of those great feelings that he felt normally when he trained. So He started showing up every day and practicing in the same state of mind as he had been in the past. And he found that even though he couldn't run up and down the court and work on his shuffling, he could still work on other skills. He could improve his accuracy from where he was sitting. And he actually got so good sending that tennis ball that he could send it with such precision that he had his friend running all over the court and ultimately exhausting himself. And when eventually this injured player returned to being able to get back to his feet and play his full game, he had actually cultivated a brand new skill set and abilities that he never had before. These abilities of lethal accuracy that made him a fierce component on the tennis court. One of the most valuable lessons that I learned from going through my own healing journey is that what matters most is not our ability to insulate ourselves from all challenges or obstacles. It's to learn to move forward and work with them, not against them. Because when you do this, it will strengthen you in ways that you previously couldn't have imagined. I know what it feels like to get knocked down and stay down for a count that feels far too long. And it's not about simply getting back up. It's about adapting our approach and doing things in a different way. Perhaps the biggest takeaway that I want to share with you is this. Life's challenges aren't meant to harm you. They're meant to help you discover and return to who you really are. To help you discover strengths that you never knew you had. All of these obstacles, whatever it is that you might be encountering or that you may encounter in the future, we now have the ability to view this as neuroplasticity gold. These are great opportunities to continue to grow and change.